The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
A very familiar perspective, but very different lighting, staring blankly at the walls and ceiling in the late afternoon, early evening hours. This time, though, it's not because I'm zonked out from stuff that has me depressed at the 9 to 5. I've just been a little bit too sedentary for the first chunk of this vacation, and it's catching up to me, so I gotta do something about that. My dad and I took the one last Massachusetts trip that we were planning on Monday. I recorded a video for the family and friends and actually just sent Dad the link to watch himself for one thing, and then if he wants to edit anything, he can edit. We can get stuff edited, but otherwise we'll be sending the link out. We're not publicly sharing the video or anything. It's too inside baseball. Most of you folks wouldn't even care about half the stuff we talk about in that video. The next step forward, hardware-wise, at least on the hardware side of things, is to continue the Great Sift. Basically, here's a tote, let's fill it up, and let's take it out to the recycling center on Friday. Trips to the recycling center are a little on the difficult side in terms of planning, because the center's hours for the town are entirely inside my normal work shift, so I have to have an early dismissal, or I have to take the day off or something, or have a day off in order to go out to this place. So, unless I want to toot around with one of these in the backseat of the car in case there's a VTO situation at work, it's a little difficult to get out to get things recycled. So, I want to have at least one trip this week on Friday, so let's find stuff to fill this bin up with. I already have some ideas on what should go first. Unfortunately, the first thing that's going to get recycled is the tablet. The old tablet anyways, from 2014 to 2015. USB broke on it. I took a look and wanted to solder on a new jack, but it was very, very finicky in terms of the soldering holes and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what, heck with it. This was a cheapy dual-core piece of junk, could barely handle even decent 2D apps, never mind 3D games. So I made the decision to retire it, and wound up getting, for the Massachusetts trip, one of its quad-core descendants, the Asus ZenPad Z170. Same price range, but a heck of a lot better, and certainly way more wallet-friendly or pocket-friendly in terms of treating this like a jumbo-sized smartphone. I also love the design choices too. This had plastic around the edges, which never felt too great. This one is thinner. It has metal around the edges, which is where most of the pressure when you're holding it like a phone is going to come from anyways. And it seems like it's just a hair thinner. It's just thin enough to make a difference, or maybe it's the Finty case or something along those lines. So, quad-core processor instead of dual-core processor, which strangely enough does a lot versus the old tablet. I can't believe I used to jam this in my pocket, but this Finty case is actually thicker, I think, than the trifold that I was able to get, the official Asus trifold. But I look for mature adult cases and stuff like that, but I found the experience with this thing to be substantially better than this so far in terms of processing power, even though it's still 1 gigs and whatnot. I'd rather have an Asus Zenfone with 4 gigs of RAM doing the heavy lifting, but in terms of getting my foot back into the mobile arena, this is it. It has worked out really well too, and of course I'm not using a screen protector because I can never get those things to work without bubbles, but at least this device actually does trifold to an extent, kind of like that one did. The only catch is, these mobile devices have a big problem with things being proprietary, so even though they're both 7-inch tablets, the minute machine-level differences in terms of like machining and stuff, and of course little things like moving the camera from there to the corner, the little itty-bitty differences mean that all the accessories that I bought for this thing are not going to fit on this. This is not the same shape as that. This hard case doesn't fit. I might be able to wing it with that rubber case I got to use as a game controller, but even then, it's just too much work for too little results. So the lesson learned here, along with others, is Number one, don't invest a lot in your first mobile device, because like your first pair of eyeglasses, you're gonna trash it because you don't know how to take care of the thing yet. But second go around, it's worth it. So, I did some experimenting. I bought probably more cases than I really ever needed for this thing. I ultimately went for the Finty, with a Finty magnetic flip thing like this, without no screen protector, no rubber case, just a Finty, something to cover the screen and make it more pocketable. And so, it was an official Asus version of it, even though the magnets in this aren't the same as they are in this sort of thing. This, actually, I picked this up, and I'm not going to be picking up... I might pick up a Finty specifically for this make and model if I really want to go back to that, but I think this trifold thing actually does the trick quite nicely. Plus, I'm not so sure how much bigger I want this thing to get. There actually is a small difference because of the thickness of the case. So I could get something thicker if I really wanted to, maybe a Finty design for this model and call it at that, but I will not be going crazy with peripherals and things like that. Plus, well, no, the camera's still recessed. Just like, well, it was even more recessed on this one, so, yeah, but what's disgusting is all those, I mean, you're talking cases are like $10, $20 each, $10, $20 each, and they're useless after the first device. So, lessons learned. We had to learn the lesson at some point. Hopefully those of you who want to use a tablet in lieu of a smartphone on Wi-Fi only cannot make the same mistakes that I did. But anyways, anything that has anything to do with this tablet, in terms of accessories and stuff, gone. The battery, everything is getting recycled. Sadly, that'll be the first thing in the great sift thing. Ultimately, though, the difference in processing power between this and this ultimately make this not worth fixing, even with soldering in a new USB jack. This is me being a lazy ass, showing you the new tablet and things along those lines. So yeah, it also is picking up where the old tablet left off in terms of doubling as like a virtual assistant of sorts. I've got the British English voice with everything, and it ran the GPS for the Massachusetts trip through Map Factor Navigator. I even got the WoW Legion companion on here. I tried Real Racing 3, but the frame rate is very similar to a Nintendo 64, so not that exciting. I did try some other goofball apps, though, that make no sense whatsoever. Like, for example, the Vacuum app, which, don't think too much, try not to overthink this one. Here's what it does. The things they'll put on mobile devices these days. But there's a touch screen! I can imagine like some kid or, maybe got like some toddler or something that's just tapping the screen and some... What's that? What's that? You gonna grow up to be a housekeeper? Shut up! You're gonna grow up to repair computers, darn it. Know what you're doing with a soldering iron. I might be a little biased. But of course, the thing to do is to run the World of Warcraft Legion companion. No. Isn't it obvious that this was coming with how things went with the garrisons? That practically was a social game like this. Isn't it obvious that this would come up? Now, this is actually these big Blizzard apps with all their graphics and everything. That's actually the limits. That's actually this garrison, well, Order Hall, excuse me. This Order Hall app is actually the limit of what this thing can do in terms of fancy graphics. Ooh, look at that. But it's usable. They don't really need a really good frame rate when you're just pointing and clicking like this. But unfortunately, once again, I'm going to have to give up the combat ally in order to start a mission here. So let's do that. This is turning into like a bad Let's Play. But I'm basically grabbing all the artifact stuff and whatnot. I might be nuts enough to take this back to work with me next week. Well, no, they don't have the Wi-Fi hotspot in, but there were plans to put some kind of open Wi-Fi available for mobile devices. If that ever becomes a thing, then I'll be poking around with the garrison on breaks and lunches. So, alright, how about while we're at it, let's check Smita too, see how she's doing. But I keep losing the combat ally. Can't have a bodyguard or something because the Vindicator Boros guy always wants to... Vindicator Boros always wants to... Yep. So we'll just get the Blood Knight thing again, although she'll probably be needed for another mission. So, yeah. So this is the limit, really. Real racing kind of struggles. Real racing struggles, but these World of Warcraft apps, including the mobile auction house, though, they run, and you don't need a high frame rate for poking around on your order hall, so makes it worth it in the long run. Well, I gotta stop trying to think up stuff on the fly like this just to have something to say while recording like this. Plus, bad camcorder Let's Play anyone? Oh, wait, no, let's check Smita here. Ah! We're gonna send somebody out on here. Where's the Holy Priest? Of course, the combat ally. I'm not really too fond of these combat allies anyway, so... The interesting part is that when your auctions sell and things like that, you can actually claim everything and load up your inventory, I guess until your inventory gets full or something like that, and then you can, you can load up your inventory until your inventory's full, of course. And those pants are really scraping in the dryer. I think I better go take a look at them after I start the next mission. Yeah. Now this is the limit of just how intense the apps can get. This thing can run Hearthstone, but it's very, very clunky. So even though it's a quad-core processor, the quad-core processor, sometimes even that's not enough. Okay, the jeans are done. Well, that's the start I was looking for. Now here's what's next. Clutter, clutter, clutter. That needs to be addressed. I mean, this stuff looks hideous. So, obviously, leftovers from building Monolith, that's going to be addressed. I've also had the old Samsung monitor apart for over 6 months. I don't think it's... Even though I do have the replacement capacitors, it was only like $10 or something, so I'm probably just going to get rid of the old monitor as well. We're approaching Black Friday. Electronics volume is going to pick up, so the prices are going to drop. So if I want a secondary display or something, it probably won't be too expensive to pick one up during the Black Friday rush. Project area has to be redone. Spare parts needs to be pared down to only stuff that I actually want to use. Likewise with the computers as well. Get those to where they need to be and things along those lines. As far as the setup goes, I think I want to flip sides again. Maybe have the project area going some other way. Also get the air conditioner out now that summer's over. And this setup, what I ultimately want is a setup where I can bring the fat bike in the wintertime and give it a rug to park it on. So, bring the fat bike. I want to bring the fat bike in during the winter months and have a place for it to dry off, because I don't want the fat bike being stored out in the elements, so to speak. I want to be able to oil the chain and do maintenance in here and things like that, and have it easily movable if I want to go out for a ride. So we gotta figure that part out. I'm probably gonna end up with a fat bike near the windows, and then this flips back to over there, because opening that window in the summertime to get some air in here never really worked out all that well. I usually just open to the other side of the house anyways. But anyways, clutter is a cruel master. It sneaks up on you, and before you know it, you're trying to do the most mundane things and you're knocking 6 or 7 things over. It's not a fun setup to have, and it requires some action. And so, the latter half of this vacation will be about taking action on that sort of thing. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.